Welcome to On Texas Football. It's time for the weekly recruiting breakdown. I'm Bobby Burton, joined by CJ Vogel of On Texas Football. CJ, how you doing today?
Good. It's a great day. We can finally focus 100% on the offseason and moving things forward. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I look at this, and we're going to talk recruiting today. The Longhorns signed 23 high school prospects, 18 of which enroll on January 14th. So they've got 18 guys coming in. They've got 3 through the portal as we speak right now. There could be more on the way. We're going to talk about those in this recruiting breakdown as well. But I want to start with what they have left on the cupboard or in store for the rest of this 2024 class in high school. Okay. And that focus really, CJ, is on one person. That's Alex Foster out of Greenville, Mississippi. I know other people have made mention of Terry Bussey and all these other guys, but really it's Alex Foster, the defensive lineman out of Greenville, Mississippi, St. Joseph Academy, 6'5", 255. He visited Texas the last weekend before the December signing day. Now he's got a decision coming up before or near the month of February. Texas continues to be involved. He continues to be committed to Baylor, though. And this is what we know at this point in time on Alex Foster. Young man is expected to make a decision sometime in the month of January for February, a final one. Bo Davis, the Texas defensive line coach, is expected to be out in Greenville, Mississippi next week, according to Foster. Foster said that right now he does not have a timeline or anything of the sort that he's looking to make a decision by. And what we're hearing is he's going to continue to talk to Texas. Texas continues to recruit him and continues to want him in this recruiting class. That would be 24 commitments. Could there be another person out there that Texas unearths when the Texas coaches go out on the road? That's a good question because, CJ, this is really what I was getting at here. There's only one person right now. Texas coaches go on the road next week. That's when the quiet period ends and then actually get out and focus on recruiting again for the class of 2025 primarily. As it relates to the class of 2025, we'll talk about that junior day here in a moment. But first, let's get into the portal. And I want to talk about Jamari Caldwell, the defensive lineman from the University of Houston. He is, quote, on the cusp of making a decision between Texas and Oregon. We do not know if it's leaning heavily to Texas or leaning heavily to Oregon at this point. Some people have conjectured that it is. Texas had a great visit with him, though. I can say that. CJ, what do you make of this recruitment for the Longhorns?
Well, I think for the Texas side of things, it certainly makes sense to say, hey, there's a big need for you right now, Jamari Caldwell. You can walk in to a team and a position group that has developed 4 future NFL linemen in the last 2 years alone. That is something that you can, without a question of a doubt, use if you're Bo Davis and the Texas defensive staff to say, there's a big need for you, and for you to develop and get to where you want to be, this is now the place for you as well. It is a win-win for both sides should, Texas and Caldwell meet up at the altar. So I think that's very important to think about because Texas has a lot going for it right now. To keep that ball rolling right now on the field, it's going to take good trench play, and that's exactly what Jamari Caldwell is as a prospect, as a player. Texas needs a guy like him to step in for the departures of, now Terrell Carter, but Tavondre Sweat and Byron Murphy as well. A lot of snaps, a lot of opportunity to be on the field, and obviously, as we talked about, the development factor is something that is going to be at top of the list for just about anybody that is making a portal move right now. None doing so better than Bo Davis at the moment.
It's interesting. Jamari Caldwell, has a number of options here, but Texas and Oregon, 2 heavyweights when it comes to recruiting. It'd be interesting where he ends up. Hopefully, Bo Davis's history of producing defensive linemen plays a key role in this final decision. All right, let's move forward to portal recruiting at wide receiver. But before we do so, I want to say thank you to our sponsor. Each and every recruiting breakdown is brought to you by Texas All-State agent Mark Saunders. He is the only insurance agent you need to help keep tabs on protection for all of your stuff. Everything from home, car, and boat to your motorcycle, RV, even your ATV. Call Texas All-State agent Mark Saunders' office today at 512-218-8571 Are you in good hands? With more than 35 years of experience, you will be with Texas alum Mark Saunders. Give him a call, 512-218-8571. Let's move to receiver in the portal, CJ, and I think this is important. A couple of things going on. Texas brought in CJ Daniels over the weekend, the wide receiver out of Liberty. Texas really liked what they saw, 6'2", 200 pounds, just about. So not a lot of times these guys list at 6'2", 200 and come in at about that height and weight. He also visited Auburn in Florida over the weekend. But he is not the only receiver Texas has been looking at. They're also anticipating an official visit this weekend of Silas Bolden, a wide receiver out of Oregon State, who's more of that jet Xavier Worthy type, whereas Daniels might be more of that, I don't know, Adonai Mitchell type. So Bolden is about 5'8", 5'9", $175, but absolutely electric, big playability. And then there was another guy, two other guys, LeJontay Wester out of Florida Atlantic. Wester just committed to Colorado, so you can scratch him off the list. And Dorian Singer, who's in the transfer portal from USC, he is looking around. He was originally at Arizona and had a 1,000-yard receiving campaign in 2022, went to USC and did not perform as well there for whatever reason in Lincoln Riley's offense. CJ, what do you think of these guys that Texas is looking at, especially Silas Bolden and CJ Daniels? They're very, very different receivers, but they have some common themes.
Yeah, I think above anything else, the common themes is production and ability to make plays with the ball in their hands. And that's, exactly what Texas has been looking for. That's what Texas wanted when Matthew Golden hopped in the portal. That's why there was such a quick, direct approach to him once he entered his name in the portal from Houston. Texas is looking for, a replacement really for, 3 or 4 guys who made a big name at Texas by catching footballs, by putting stats on the field, production on tape, whatever you want to call it. That's exactly what Texas is lacking from a year ago, or I guess is what departed just out the door a few days ago, really. So Texas is looking for those guys that they know and they can trust right away to come in, make plays, learn the system, and be a big part of the offense rather than a developmental year in, year out kind of, we'll wait and see what we have down the road. They have plenty of that. You talk about DeAndre Moore, Ryan Niblett, obviously the 4 guys coming in on the freshman class as well. The young guys are stockpiling right now. Texas needs a guy that they can trust in to be that, that wide receiver 1 or even wide receiver 2 for 2024. That is important. That is imperative for Quinn Ewers' continued development and obviously the success of the offense as Texas moves into the SEC.
Where else do you think Texas might look in the portal right now?
Tight end makes sense. When you consider the departure of Jatavian Sanders, it's obviously been a position that Texas and that we have talked about on Coffee and Football and throughout the On Texas Football channel, that tight end, whether it be Holden Stays or Ben Yurcich out of Stanford, there is a spot right there for Texas to go get another body, another guy who has production on the field and has a lot of meaningful snaps to stand by Gunnar Helm. Otherwise, that position is a bit up in the air of who kind of takes that leap. I know Sarkisian likes that 12 personnel grouping. Right now, I'm not sure there's another guy aside from a Malik Agbo who limits you vertically down the field that Texas trusts to throw on the field if the season were to start tomorrow.
I'm looking at it too, and I feel like tight end is definitely one. What do you make of linebacker if David Benda? We believe he's going to announce his return here soon. But if David Benda doesn't come back, what do you think about a guy like Kendrick Blackshire, who played a little bit for Alabama as a junior and senior, but the Duncanville native could be a bounce back to Texas?
It would be interesting, because we've seen several years of game time from Kendrick Blackshire. We've not seen a lot of production from him. 26 tackles this year, 3 of which came against Texas. He has a forced fumble and fumble recovery. Most of those numbers came from special teams. If you're going to go get a linebacker, I'm not sure if you're really looking for a guy who's been a predominant special teamer. I think there's a lot of common traits and characteristics from a game, kind of style approach from Kendrick Blackshire to David Benda. I think what you get from him is a athletic, kind of firm body that is able to come fit the run, but it's not great in the passing game, pass coverage. That's what made Jalen Ford so special. That's what's kind of catching on right now for Anthony Hill as well. Kendrick Blackshear to me is just kind of a bigger body than what David Benda is. So I'm a little surprised by it, but I'm sure you see this a little bit of a different way. What do you expect?
I think that they may need some depth at linebacker that are older to match with Anthony Hill if David Benda goes pro, because then Maurice Blackwell is the only other upperclassman really that's seen any action. So I understand it. The key one, though, for me will be defensive back. If Jahdae Barron does choose to go pro, CJ, it could be an issue for the Longhorns, in my opinion. Because then they might need to take another DB that, again, has some starting experience, because otherwise they're going to be relatively inexperienced at certain positions next year. If Barron does come back, I think they sit tight in the secondary in the portal. All right, let's move forward to 2025. You and I have talked about this a lot. The first junior day will take place January 20th. But actually, there's going to be a couple of visitors, or at least one visitor, this coming weekend, and that's KJ Lacey, the quarterback commitment out of Saraland in the Mobile area, who says that Auburn, A&M, Alabama, and others, Oregon, are still recruiting him despite his pledge to Texas. But Lacey not only visiting this coming weekend in Austin, but 2 weeks from now as well with his high school teammate, Ryan Williams.
It's big. I know Texas wanted to get KJ Lacey on campus by himself so they could really, start instilling why they view him and kind of fend off the Auburn push as much as they could. That was kind of the big approach to getting him on campus alone early on into this 2025 cycle. Obviously, it's going to help having him on campus later on during the official visit of Saraland teammate and 5-star 2024 reclassified wide receiver Ryan Williams. That's going to help. But in the sense of holding on to the recruitment of KJ Lacey, getting that extra one-on-one time with the Texas staff and Steve Sarkisian is imperative. It is very important. Auburn is clearly making a big push, as are, a number of other schools that you just mentioned. So a lot of voices in his ears, a lot of people tugging on the recruitment strings and everything that go along the lines of that. So for Texas to get him into the city, around the university, and on campus twice over the next month, very important. To get him some alone time with the staff, in my eyes, even more important.
Got it. All right. We did talk about those January 20th unofficial visitors, the first junior day for the University of Texas this year. A couple of the guys scheduled to be there: Tiger Ridden, the running back out of DeSoto. Jordan Davison is debating between Texas and Ohio State for a visit. That's the running back out of Santa Ana Mater Dei that we feel Tashard Choice is kind of soft circled as one of the priorities of the campaign. Then in wide receiver, it's an interesting group. Kelshawn Johnson out of Hitchcock has been given a lot of play lately in notoriety. Tanook Hines, Emmanuel Choice, big receivers there. Ja'Cory Watson, Jaden Perez, Nick Townsend, a tight end out of Decaney potentially. You look at the offensive and defensive line, that's probably where the most numbers are at this point. I count 8 offensive linemen at least scheduled for unofficial visits for the January 20th weekend. On the defensive line, I count 8 as well, 2 edges, 6 defensive tackles at this point. Probably led by, I would say, Zion Williams, defensive tackle out of Lufkin. Any updates on some of these juniors that Texas is getting ready to have on campus in the next week and a half or so, CJ?
I know there's been some talk about 5-star Jonah Williams making it to town. He told me that there's a possibility he makes it to Austin. That's kind of still, up for debate. He'll know, obviously in the next week or so whether or not he does in fact make it to Austin. But that's a recruitment right there where you talk about a loaded group at, in the defensive back, the linebacking group for the 2025 class. He's a guy that can do it all. He's one of the best athletes in the entire country. Obviously a 2-sport star down there in Galveston. He's a big one. And then obviously you touched on the offensive lineman as well. I'm a big fan of Lamont Rogers, Michael Fasusi, Garcia out of Denton Ryan as well. That's some really good talent, and it's a deep in-state offensive line class, which doesn't need or necessarily force the hand of Texas to go nationally despite having the option. So it really is the best of both worlds there for Texas to take care of the backyard and still have the option to go pick and choose from wherever they feel necessary, outside the state lines.
You mentioned Marcus Garcia. This past year is his first year as an offensive lineman. Listen to what he did, though. His best sport may not even be football. He threw the discus 180.
Whew.
He's already been on an official a visit to Texas A&M just for throwing the discus.
Look at that.
So, I mean, he's legit. That's one. Here's a name to keep in mind, okay, that I want you to kind of circle. And, folks, it's an offensive lineman out of San Francisco that has some ties to Kyle Flood, big-time player, John Mills. Keep that name in mind as he comes in on the January 20th weekend. Also, the other one that I want to mention, we talked about Riley Pettijohn. That was another one. He was a teammate of Xavier Filsaime up at McKinney at linebacker. One of the best players in the state, regardless of position, in my opinion, is another linebacker, and that's Bo Barnes. And Elijah Bo Barnes out of Dallas Skyline. He's also expected to be in that weekend. Tell us a little bit about him, and I know you know him a little bit there, CJ.
Oh, I mean, both of them are exciting. For Bo Barnes specifically, it's kind of the speed and range that he brings to the table with the combination of going to go hit somebody. And you talk about lengthy, rangy linebackers in the current day of college football. You got to have them. And both guys, in my eyes, are guys that fill that need, fit that description of what you want as an SEC linebacker. I like Elijah Bo Barnes a lot. I like the tape because there's versatility to it, and I think it's not necessarily always a one-trick pony. When you kind of start talking about, some of the inner city schools, there's kind of a reputation that there's a lot of, kind of veer and shoot, not necessarily, but a lot of running the football in a style of that matter. He can cover. Let it be known. He can cover. And so I'm a big fan of his and the way that he can diversify his approach to the football game, if that makes sense there.
Yeah, I want to say one other thing. Bringing in four corners, Texas taking a little bit different approach at secondary. They look like they're looking for more cover guys right now than just enforcers in the secondary. Not that they don't want the physicality, but something to keep in mind. I do have one other comment I want to make. First, I want to say thank you one last time to our sponsor. That's Mark Saunders, the Texas All-State agent. He is who you need to talk to if you want to get protection on all your stuff, everything from home, car, boat, to your motorcycle, RV, and ATV. Call Texas All-State agent Mark Saunders' office today, 512-218-8571. Are you in good hands? With over 35 years of experience, you will be with Texas alum Mark Saunders. That's 512-218-8571. All right, CJ, we talked a little bit about this recruiting class that's upcoming this January 20th. Do you think there's going to be any commitments out of this group? Do you think Steve Sarkisian will kind of roll into this? What are your thoughts?
It's not been a common theme for Texas to take a lot of commitments this early in the cycle during Sarkisian's tenure, but there's also not been a season in which Texas is coming off of a top 3 finish in the entire country, an appearance in the college football playoff, and everything seemingly moving in the right direction momentum-wise. So I could certainly see it kind of stray from the norm. Texas already has 4 commitments in the 2025 cycle, only one of which inside the state lines of Texas. So it would make sense. I could see something popping. I could see recruits trying to join the class, and Texas kind of having that decision now of we'll take it or we'll wait, whatever that might be. There's a lot of that goes into committing to a school, obviously, as we know. But right now, I could certainly see Texas gaining an addition to the 2025 class in just over 11 days.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that they're going to find, whether it's 1 or 2, I don't know, but Texas is just such a hot commodity right now. There's going to be some dominoes on January 20th. All right, that's going to do it for today's recruiting breakdown. Appreciate you, CJ. Appreciate our sponsor, Mark Saunders. For CJ Vogel, I'm Bobby Burton. We'll be back if there's any movement on Jamari Caldwell, A guy like CJ Daniels, Jahdae Barron, if he makes his announcement as well. Stay tuned to On Texas Football. For CJ Vogel, I'm Bobby. Y'all have a good one. Hook 'em.